Satnam Aloha, everyone. So this is the chart for Venus right here. Right, as of January 26th, Venus is going to be moving into Pisces, the sign of Pisces, and then it's going to be there until February 18th, Venus in Pisces. So you may be asking, well, what's the big deal about Venus? Why should we care about Venus? Right? Well, Venus is the ruler of the North Node, right? So the North Node is the 24. That's ruled by Taurus. You can see it up there, right? It's coming off the Ajna center. So it's always a good idea to follow the rulers, especially the North Node, right? That's karmically where we're going. I mean, this is a transit chart, right? Your natal chart has the red side to the unconscious. This is the portrait, right? The God's portrait of you when you were born. So this is what you can count on, whatever your chart looks like. You can go down below in the information box and get your free chart. And it's always a good idea if you're following my channel. You know, if you haven't, subscribe to it, and then you'll be learning about your own chart through my videos, right? So we have to be aware of this. It's all about being authentic, not following the herd, right? We can't do that anymore. It's dangerous to follow the herd, to go along to get along, right? Make compromises and this. And it's like, no, we're moving through a whole new time, this new global cycle, right? In 2027, the solar plexus mutation is happening and the Aquarian age is happening. It's all about you being your authentic self. So what's really interesting too, which really piqued my interest, is the solar plexus, right? So these are all centers, and this is the center of the solar plexus. And this is going through a huge mutation right now, right? Our human evolution. So these solar flares, we're going to see more and more of these this year, this solar flare activity. The ancients warned us that this would be a sign that we're going to be going through a huge transition as a humanity, right? We're evolving. It's a real thing. So solar flares are emitted from the sun, right? Also more and more information, and it's triggering this emotional body. This is the solar plexus to release, right? So it's penetrating through the electromagnetic field of the earth, which is like the aura of the earth. And then it's penetrating through our own individual aura, triggering this emotional body to start releasing, right? This is an ancestral memory, right? Ancestral memories are releasing. All those stuck emotions are releasing. And then this in turn is going to mutate. The solar plexus mutates. It's our second brain, right? It's going to start to light up. And then this in turn turns into a spirit awareness. So we're evolving from this physical, experiencing life through our five senses, right? Through our body. From the mental awareness, we've taken as far as we can go with the mind, and now we're moving into this emotional awareness, right? So you cannot connect to your spirit, you cannot connect to your soul, the divine, without this, without your emotions. These are, right? You can't stay in the mind. It's all a concept. It's not real. God is a feeling. The divine is a feeling, right? So then this mutates, and then spirit awareness. So this is the pathway of awareness for us, right? We're moving from the physical to the mental to the emotional to frequency. We're going back to frequency. We're going back to vibrational for this new age of Aquarius. But look what we got to go through. This emotional body that's all stuck, right? And this gets developed from 0 to 7 years old. All those emotional imprints start then, right? And then the emotions don't move. Think of water. When water doesn't move, it stagnates. It gets really unhealthy. Well, it crystallizes, right? These emotions crystallize that weren't moved from 0 to 7 years old, and they stay with you, right? Into adulthood. And this is what's creating your reality, right? Our world is an emotional mirror. It's mirroring back to us these stuck emotions so they can start releasing. So if you leave with any message from this video, maybe you're like ready to go off to a nice shiny, another shiny thing on YouTube, is don't think your way through life. It's time to feel your way through life. That's where you're safe. That's what's real. Your feelings are what's real, right? And the emotions are real. It's just about integrating them. And then you get to this feeling tone. And there's a lot of wisdom there. This is this new felt perception that's coming online, the self-sensory system that's coming online, right? So I'm not going to think and go into the details of what's going on in my life. I'm going to feel what's going on. And what do these feelings remind me of? Always goes back to the 0 to 7-year-old, right? So this is what my Phoenix program's all about, is doing this shadow work and this inner emotional work. And you got tools and meditations and teachings to understand this, right? This is the new frontier, this emotional body. And so we want to get to spirit awareness. That's where we're all headed, to spirit awareness. We long for this. This is what we're really longing for. But the ego tricks us into like, oh, you're going to get it if you get that new partner, or you get that new job, or that new house, or you're moving into a new place, something external to you, and it keeps you in this state, right, with the ego. But it's through the emotional body. That's what we're all longing for. Peace is on the other side, joy is on the other side. But it's about integrating these emotions and feeling them. Okay, so back to this Venus, right? So Venus is in the 55, and that really piqued my interest too, right? So this is going through a mutation, this gate here of the 55. So there's 1 to 64 of these gates or hexagrams. Also the gene keys. I'm putting the gene keys in here too. And so each one has a shadow, a gift, and a city. And the 55 is the only one that has the gift and the city are the same, which is freedom. Right? So it's the shadow of the victim. The victim consciousness needs to leave the planet, right? Non-negotiable. We have to let this go. And it's also called the gate of spirit, right? Because of this solar plexus mutation, right? Spirit awareness, right? This is what's getting triggered. There's the solar plexus shadows and fears. So these are all the gates of this is our emotional awareness. Right? So the 36 is the shadow of turbulence. This is the fear of being, right? Venus is hitting all of these, right? All of the ones ruled by Pisces. So fear of being emotionally vulnerable, right? The 36. 22 is dishonor. It's the fear of silence. 37 is the weakness, fear of tradition. This is about male and female, masculine and feminine energy. Conflict, the fear of intimacy, this is Virgo. Reaction, fear of rejection, that's Aquarius. And then 55 is Pisces, victim, fear of emptiness, right? Fear of emptiness. And then 30 is Aquarius, desire, fear of the fates. But we're gonna just look at the Pisces ones, right? So these are the ones ruled by Pisces: 36, 22, 37. And then 55. I don't know why 55 is not in here, right? So these are the fears here. And so you can see 36, 22, 37, 55, all ruled by Pisces. So very bright. Pisces is the archetype of spirit. Yeah. And the only one that's in the up here is the 63. That's the only one that's not the solar plexus, and that's Pisces. Doubt, right? But I'll talk about that in a future video. I don't want to overwhelm people with too much information, you know? So let's look at Venus and what Venus represents. Okay, so there's Venus, and this is the conditioning field, right? This represents the conditioning field, which may or may not be true for you. So if you look at your chart and you've got the 55, then this is going to be true for you, right? But statistically, that's going to be pretty low, right? So, so if not, then this is the conditioning field. This is the heavy metal music pulling us, right? So Venus, What does this represent? This is the moral code of the matrix or the Maya, the program, whatever you want to call this reality. What is being promoted, right? So this is the judgment of what is right or wrong. It's a set of rules of how people should behave in society. So it may or may not be correct for you. Chances are it's not correct for you. If you got maybe you got the 55 in Saturn, it's still not correct for you, right? So your moral code will be connected to where Venus is in your chart. So it also represents values and money, attraction, ease, right? So once I get into the astrology, it's going to bring some, so we're harnessing this energy, but we know if I don't have that 55 in Venus, it's not me, but I can use this energy. This is where you get smart. Projectors, I'm a projector. This is where you get smart, because we know energy. The projectors know energy, and it's because we're a non-energy type. It's like, I know this is not my energy, but I'm going to harness it. I'm going to use it. Because the victim, the 55, this is the baseline for all the other 63 gates. Victim. Their shadow is always victim. Wherever there's a shadow pattern, there's a victim, right? There's a victim essence of victim there. So we can use this energy. So what are we going to see? This is what we see in the headlines, right? When you start to study this program and see the patterns, another thing, projectors, just to toot our horn here for projectors, we're really good at pattern recognition, right? So we're going to see this out in the headlines, in the news. We're going to notice it around us, because most people are unconscious and asleep. I mean, more and more people are awakening, but they're just following this program. They just follow this program like parrots, right? And it's fun to watch them actually use the language, like even keynote words they'll use. It's quite funny to watch and observe. So victim. So this is going to encourage, right? We're going to see this in the headlines, that it's correct to be a victim, right? That it's right. It's morally right to be a victim. It's morally right to encourage victimhood in other people too, right? Because you may be like, well, I'm not a victim, but then I'm putting other people in the box of victim. Then you're doing this, right? That it's morally correct, right? To be a victim. And we're not victims. We are not victims. Okay, so I just want to talk about the shadow of victim. We've gone through, everybody has had their cross to bear during this time. Test it, like extremely test it, spiritually test it, right? Born and incarnated into these families, these ancestral lines to purify. That's why part of the reason why we choose a certain family line is to purify a wound, some kind of ancestral wound that we came in, we took on, right? And then we purified, we worked through it, did the alchemy, did all the inner work. Maybe none of your family members did any work at all. There can be some resentment coming up about that. But the black sheep of the family are not black sheeps of the family. They're the ones that can't come in and do the work, do the inner work. And it can be a thankless job, but that's okay, right? Because we're rewarded by the divine with this inner work. When we incarnate into these family lines, we go through experiences, but they're not you. They're not who you really are. So where victim comes in, victim wants to identify with all these horrible experiences and traumatic experiences I had, but they're just the details of your experiences. They have nothing to do with your identity. You're a spiritual being having human experiences, right? And so the powers that be, right, the conditioning field that wants to pull us away from our power, which is our authenticity, wants us to identify with this, with these details of our life. And then we create the victim Olympics, right? Whoever gets the gold medal for the victim experience they went through, they get the biggest voice, and we all feel sorry for them, right? And we feel guilty. We give these people our power, right? Our power away. So when you put people like that, like, oh, that they went through such horrible experiences and this and that, and right? It's like you're feeding your own inner victim when you do that. So you can't look at people like that. You've got to look with your third eye, not your two physical eyes, right? Like, what a great soul to take on what they did, right, in this incarnation. So this is the trap, right? So the trap is identity. That's the trap with this victim, is identity. So it's freedom, right? So this is when we're truly free, is when we're free from this victim consciousness. And who's behind it all? Worm tongue. The ego. This is the form. I've just given the ego a form so you understand. It's better you can understand it with the mind. This is the not self. Right here is the ego, is the not self. That's the voice in your head, right? That's always been there since you were a child. And you start to believe, most people believe that this ego is them. And that's that voice in your head that's always talking. And it came in strong when you were 7 years old. Remember, 0 to 7 is the emotional development, and then 7 to 14 is the mind, and the ego comes in really, really strong with the development of the mind. So ego is not your friend. There's New Age teachings out there that talk about healthy egos and this and that, and that's giving your power over to this. This is more ego, right? More ego. And we can live. We can live, and I want to stress this, we can live without this ego. Don't be listening to the lies. This is the false light that's out there. We were said that in the Aquarian age, we're going to see so many false prophets out there. Everybody and their dog's grandmother is going to tell you that they have the way. They have all the answers, right? And just myself, I'm pointing you back to you. Don't follow me. I'm just pointing you back to yourself. Right? All the answers are inside you. So this is the state of awareness that we're moving into, spirit awareness, away from this ego, away from this mind, and we can live happy and peaceful and joyous, creative without this. We don't need this, right? This is coming into the eternal now. The ego and the mind, they belong in time. We're coming into the past, present, future. We're coming into the present now moment. This is the eternal now. And that's this state of consciousness. This is freedom, right? So, so this needs the victim, right? The ego needs to be a victim. Victim or victor, they're the same thing. I got something over that person. I gave them a piece of my mind. That's still victim. That person did that to me. This happened to me. I want revenge. That's still victim. They're both victim, the consciousness of victim. So this ego wants to exist. That's its MO. I need to exist. And how I need to exist is you feeding me energy, constantly feeding me with conflict, feeding me with victim thoughts of how horrible my life's been, and that person did that to me, and this. That's all you're doing. You're just shoveling your energy into that ego's mouth, and that makes it stronger. It makes that ego stronger and stronger and stronger, because then there's an identity. This is identity, ego identity. It's the not self. It's not you, right? So it needs a problem, and you'll notice this. Let's start noticing your mind. This is what this work is all about, is creating a relationship between you and your mind, right? It's hard to put, it's difficult to put a picture, right? An illustration to who you are, because you're more vast even than this, but I've done my best here. It's the relationship between you and the mind, you and the ego. Don't identify with this ego, because it limits you. Right? It makes you teeny weeny to who you really are, right? This vastness. So it's about this is why we need a sadhana, right? We need a meditation practice, something that we do every day that puts it in this state, right? So Kundalini yoga, but whatever floats your boat, like what works for you. It's about you finding your own unique path, right? And then watching these ego thoughts, and you'll notice this even with people, because people connect even through victim consciousness. Well, I've got to think about a problem that I've been having in my life, right? And then I can connect with my friend, and then we're both feeding each other's victim. Well, this happened to me, this happened to me, right? We're not taught to connect in a real way with other people, right? So imagine you without a problem. Imagine that. Just bring that thought into your mind. I don't have any problem. My only problem is feeding this. That's my problem, is I feed that ego, right? So if you go into that state, I don't have a problem, well, this ego will start kicking up a stink, right? Because it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And the true you is getting larger and larger and larger, right? So the ego needs a problem. It needs a problem to exist. It's all about existence. That's what this shadow is all about. So here's the ego in your in your head. How you know you're in the shadow pattern. And we're going to see this out in the world, right? But we're going to know this isn't me. This isn't me. I'm not going to feel guilty. I'm not going to feel bad because other people have gone through horrible experiences. I'm not going to tell my story, my victim story, over and over and over again, feeding this ego. I'm going to be silent, right? I'm going to be that holy witness with people, and I'm not going to feed this ego, right? So, it's the notice me, notice me, notice me, notice me. Watch a narcissist, because you'll see the ego really at work in a narcissist, because it's so extreme. But we all have this, right? We all have this voice in our head. Look at me, I have a problem. I exist, right? See, and the shadow pattern makes you see the surface of things and chase something outside of me to feel better, right? And I'm either complaining or blaming. So I'm complaining inside. You can even be internally complaining, or complaining to other people, blaming other people for how you feel, right? Remember, this is the emotional body work. And you're the star victim in the drama of your life. You're the star, right? Nobody knows what I went through. Nobody understands what I went through. I'm a victim. Ego. I'm special. It's about specialness. And then in relation to my spirituality, I lack commitment and I become a spiritual tourist, because that ego does not want you to commit to any kind of spiritual path. It wants an exit door. It will only take you so far. You know the spiritual tourists. They're on to the next shiny thing, right? And we've got so many distractions now out in the world, and the ego will choose. These people that are identified with their ego, the ego will choose what path I take. I want to just follow my bliss. This doesn't make me feel good, so I'm going to go somewhere else. These are false light teachings, right? We don't grow being comfortable. We grow through discomfort, and that's the emotional body work. If you're feeling discomfort, don't listen to that ego telling you that, oh, that's right, that's blaming. This isn't for me. I'm going to go find something else. You're not going to grow and evolve, right? Okay. So the shadow feels victimized by your material reality, because it's also connected to prosperity, right? Your material, what you're seeing in the material realm. And this need for external validation, needing that other person to feed your victim. Oh, poor you, right? That was horrible. And just to keep you trapped in that box, a victim, right? So just knowing without a doubt, I'm not a victim. I'm not a victim. These are just details that happened in my life. They're not my identity. It's not my identity. Okay, so you watch this. You don't listen. That's how you do shadow work. You don't listen. That's not me. I'm not this. I'm not going to identify with this. I'm not going to go to write a book about it. My whole identities are surrounded around this identity of victim. It's just drop it. Let it go. They're just details. I'm moving on, right? I'm moving on. I'm growing. I'm evolving. And this is true freedom, right? So with freedom, the gift here in the city, remember this 55 is going through a huge mutation, right? So we're going to see this coming up in the collective, out in the world. So I understand that I've been a victim of my unconscious belief patterns, right? So this can go into your unconscious mind, and this totally creates how you see the world, right? If you're in victim consciousness, you're listening to him, your ego, the ego, and then you start to see all you see is victim out in the world. It completely affects your perception. You're limited in your perspective of the world, right? And these can be inherited from your ancestors, because we inherit our ancestral wounds. Remember, we choose what family line we come into. Well, we also inherit their belief patterns, these unconscious belief patterns, right? So it keeps us from really like stepping up, right, in the world, and to take our place, right? So I take responsibility for my karma and my ancestral karma expressing itself in my life, you know? And we're going to be, this year especially really started, I felt like the karmic process is becoming more and more intense, especially in our relationships. And it's always to take the high road. Don't go into victim, right? I don't know what our dynamics were in our past life, you know? But now I just have to work through this. I'm greater than this. I'm moving through this victim consciousness. I don't understand, and it's nothing wrong. Why is it happening? Because it's required for you for your spiritual development. And I'm free because I see through my deepest unconscious patterns. And again, it's pattern recognition. Look back and reflect on your life, right? Like, what's this pattern? And the pattern will be an emotional pattern. Why do I feel abandoned? Right? This happens to me over and over and over and over, that I'm rejected and I'm abandoned. Right? Well, then you go to the feeling of, I've got grief, I've got sadness about this, or I have anger about that. That's your work, right? It's the feelings is what your work is. That's what you're going to integrate. And then you're going to let it go, right? And move on. And you don't rely on outer systems or structures to keep you safe. And this is the codependency that's coming, right? I talk about this with this cross of the sleeping phoenix coming. We got to let go of these old templates of being codependent on other people and systems, right? All the answers are inside you, right? God, the divine's inside you. You don't need something outside of you, right? It's all inside you. So you embrace peace even in the most painful moments. So freedom is a feeling. See how the mind tricks us? Well, you'll be free when you earn this much money, or you'll be free when you're in a loving relationship, when you have something outside of you and it keeps you focused on, it's the big carrot that keeps you focused on the external. When really it's a feeling, that's what you're chasing. Right? And it's to go inside, right? Not to be distracted from the external. So this 55. It's a huge, big deal. It's going to be there until January 31st. And then it's going to be moving on to the 37 next. Right? So be sure to like and share and subscribe if you haven't already. And check out my programs, the Phoenix program and then the recorded readings. They're both still on sale. It's all about you becoming your authentic self. And I have more information on the website. And also the sacred secretion is information that you need to know too. So remember that you're not a victim. And don't believe the ego that's telling you a victim. And please do not put people in a box and call them a victim and pity them. It doesn't help anybody. We're great, huge spiritual beings having human experiences. We're more powerful than we've ever been told. Right? Don't let anybody tell you who you are, or don't let anybody define you by your experiences. You're much greater than your experiences. Okay? So I'll see you in the next video. And Satnam Aloha, everyone.